All right, so it's what is it, March 24th, and we're on episode 26 or 27 of Wholesaling the Cool Way. We've had a couple of technical difficulty episodes, so I don't know if those count. But anyway, thanks for joining us. And I'm Mark Cool. This is my son, Jasper Cool. We're both real estate investors working in North Carolina, in the market in North Carolina, but we have our two separate businesses. And we meet every Sunday and check in about how we're doing and compare notes and learn from each other. And so we just opened up our meeting to the general public in case it can be of service to people. Normally we start off with inspiration and education. So Jasper, do you have stuff for this week that you learned from or were inspired by you want to share?
Yeah, I checked in offline about Ricky. So I think the other thing that I could share was that I watched this video by Sahil Bloom. I think I mentioned before that I started following him on YouTube because he started making videos. And so he went to this event in India and he flew on this Emirates first class flight and he did a video on it. And I just thought that was so cool. Like it was so cool. So basically like you get on this plane and it's a two-story plane and you get on there and then you get it like escorted to your own suite. It's kind of more similar to like a train car, I think, than like a plane, but it's really cool. And so you go in there and then you sit down and your seat is a full recline, so it can go from just like a captain's chair all the way to a bed. And then right in front of you, you got your TV, you got a table that you can eat on, and you got this tablet. And he was just showing everything. Like you can order anything you want on this tablet. And then he showed like the food, and it's like a real 5-star like restaurant type food. And they serve it, on fine china with like napkins and silverware and everything. And he showed like he ordered all these different kinds of food, so he could kind of show it. And then they have a shower in there, so you can go and take a shower and it's only 5 minutes of continuous water, but you can take a 5-minute shower on a plane. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then they have like pajamas for you on there and slippers and stuff, and just crazy. And they have like a full bar, so you can leave your little room and you can go out and walk. And they have like a full bar, like you're in a restaurant, and it has a lounge. And it has just like booths, but they have seatbelts on them because you're still in a plane, but it's just like a restaurant like in the thing. So it was just like really cool to see that. That was inspiring.
Yeah.
It was cool because I think they like gave him that flight just so he could like make the video on it. You know what I mean? So they could get like promotion from it. So I just thought that was super cool. Another reason, for us to do this podcast and and maybe go viral or something. But I just thought that was really cool to see that. And then it also showed like his event that he was doing. It was called something. I think it was called Decoding Discipline or something. It was him and another guy, and they were in India because they're both of Indian descent.
Yeah.
And so they were over there. They were over there doing this event, and it was really cool. And Sahil's parents flew out with him and stuff. And then he was showing like the hotel, which I don't know what it was, but it was a really nice hotel. He showed the gym and all this stuff, and really cool. But that was inspiring for me. And then I'm still reading that book, Crucial Conversations. I'm reading that one this week still, and I had some good takeaways from that as well. But yeah, I can just keep it brief with that. That was the main thing that I watched this week that stood out to me for inspiration.
Cool. And when he was talking about Ricky, a friend of ours from Jasper's childhood, made it to the NBA, and Jasper was able to see him courtside in Phoenix playing for the 76ers. So pretty exciting and
Yeah,
inspiring unto itself, the work and dedication and mental focus and faith that it takes to get there. And then really
yeah,
cool that it happened to somebody that we've known since he was, what, 8 or 9 or something? I don't know. We've
yeah.
known him.
I don't know.
And pretty
Yeah,
awesome. Jasper was able to send me some video of Ricky, getting a dunk and shooting a three on Kevin Durant. And so just super, super fun and exciting, and really excited for Ricky, and wishing him the best on his career.
yeah.
Okay, so then it's my turn. I've got notes here, so I'm going to just grab my notes and see if I wrote down anything about. I'm still reading a couple of books. Well, I'm not reading books right now. I'm almost finished with in terms of paper books. I'm almost finished with the How to Live by Derek Sivers. I kind of slowed down on that because I think I slowed down because I've got the last couple pages and I didn't want it to end. So,
Yeah.
but I'm going to finish that one up. The last couple ways to live, which is just cool. He's just expounds on the like 27 different philosophies on how to live your life, and then it makes a great argument for a lot of different ways to think about living your life. So very cool and fun book. And then I started this book Jasper gave me, Multipliers, which is good. I got that one. I'm just reading on bedside, which is I'm just barely into it, but I like it a lot. It's just talking about the mindset of leaders who facilitate people to grow and get multiplying results, rather than leaders who stifle people and try and control everything. That's what I'm getting from the beginning of it, anyway. So I'm looking forward to diving into it
Yeah.
more, because leadership is a big thing for me as my business grows. We have 6 people on the team, so the more I grow, the more I see how important it is to manage the team or interact with the team in a good way and empower people. And so, looking forward to digging into that. And then, what else do I have here? Well, 2 books I've been mentioning the last couple of weeks. *Sapiens* is really great. It's like the history of humankind from the very beginning up until present. And now I'm in the section about the uh, sort of the 17th century, or wait, 16th and 17th, when people started to colonize America and everywhere else from Europe, and how that whole thing evolved. And actually, that's when like stock markets and corporations and shares and everything started investing in these companies that were sending ships places to colonize and get resources from them and stuff. So pretty cool and interesting stuff, just to understand history better and how we've evolved and how it affects who we are today. So I'd recommend *Sapiens* for anybody. It's best selling probably 10 years ago, but I always knew I wanted to read it, and now I'm listening to it. It's a great listen. The narrator's awesome. Um,
Yeah.
and what else do I have? Oh, I'm just finishing up another audiobook, which is Adam Grant, *Hidden Potential*, and that's an awesome book. I highly recommend it to anybody. Just really talking about, it's similar to like if you like Malcolm Gladwell or God, I keep forgetting that other guy's name that we just listened to recently on a book. But anyway, just like human psychology, the psychology of growth, how people work, and then looking at what we overlook or what we uh, could look at differently in order to maximize our own potential and recognize potential in others. So, and a lot of cool anecdotes and stories about everything from Steph Curry to like the mine collapse in Peru where they rescued the 33 people, and a lot of he uses stories of people who had hidden potential. One was about this astronaut who applied to be an astronaut for 15 years and got rejected every time he applied for 15 years and never gave up. And he started as a migrant farm worker, Mexican migrant farm worker, like picking fruit with his family when he was a kid, and putting himself through school, doing small jobs like that. And they overlooked his potential, and finally he was able to illustrate, like they're talking about the distance he traveled versus somebody who grew up with a privileged upbringing and was able to go to an Ivy League school and have everything paid for and stuff. But the distance he traveled from being a poor immigrant farm worker with parents who never made it past like 6th or 7th grade education to get to the place where he was a high level engineer and a pilot and someone who had mastered, done marathons and scuba diving and just all this crazy stuff that he had done. And so his resume
Yeah.
might look the same on the surface to other people's, but he traveled much farther. So his growth potential was much bigger, and his capability to grow. Like it's just cool how they re-examine things like that. So I highly recommend that, *Hidden
Yeah.
Potential*, for anybody who hasn't checked that out. And I think that's good for me. I mean, I can always check in about more stuff, but we had a good deal lab session this week too. The biggest thing
Yeah.
about that was just listening to Matt break down his KPIs, and it's inspiring to see how dialed in he is on measuring his KPIs and seeing how they affect his business and systematizing things so that he can have stuff sort of automated and know
Yeah.
it's going to continue to work, and keep it simple, right? So that was the in a nutshell my takeaway from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's move on to the next thing that we normally check in about, which is just our businesses and what's going on in the business. As far as speaking of KPIs, like what sort of markers we've hit this week, or what we can quantify about the business, and then um, normally we'll move into whatever challenges and victories we've had, and any stories or tips or tricks or tools we've uncovered or used during the week. Uh,
Yeah.
you down for that, Jasper?
Let's do it.
All right.
So I'll start with my KPIs for this week. So we got 92 leads, put out 98 offers. So that's awesome. Even though, what's that?
More offers than leads.
I know, that's awesome. And I just noticed that. I was just looking back at the last few weeks, and that's the first time this has happened in like 4 weeks. So that's cool. But yeah, so 92 leads, 98 offers. We got 3 contracts this week, sold 2 deals this week, and closed 1. So great week for me overall.
That's great.
Yeah, and so I'll do a brief breakdown of the deal we did close in case anyone is interested in hearing about that. So let me just open this up. So I've touched on this. If anyone's been listening to our past few episodes, I've touched on this deal a few times, but it's finally closed. So the deal with the crazy tenants and everything, and the frustrated lender and buyer and everything has finally closed as of this week. So
Nice.
that was a pretty big victory for us. Yeah, and I guess I'll start with the KPIs and then I can go into a bit of a story about it. So first things first, this was a cold call lead, and this was from company Call Geeks. And the original campaign I launched back in July of last year. That's when I bought the campaign and launched it. And this lead came in, one second. This lead originally came in October. So we launched end of July, came in October. So that's about what, 3 months, 3.5 months or so from when we launched the campaign to when we got this particular lead. And then once we got this lead in October, we didn't contract him until the first week of December. So that's about a month-ish. This came in the end of October. So about a month and a half before we contracted him. So that took some follow-up. In my system, it says that it took us 21 follow-up attempts before we got a contract with him. So I don't know exactly how accurate that is because I don't think that tracks text messages as well, but it does track like our call attempts. So at least 21 follow-ups to get this guy. And then we got him in December. And again, I'll just recap briefly for anyone who hasn't heard our past episodes, but we got him in December. It was scheduled to close in January once the tenants moved out. Long story short, they didn't move out until this past week in March. So we were delayed about 60 days from our initial closing date. And then we finally got the tenants out, and we did give the buyer some concessions. Basically, we gave him a couple $1,000 off the price because he had to pay interest for multiple months, and he had to get his crew out there and multiple times. You know, they went out there for almost a week straight trying to get this tenant out. So we gave him a few $1,000 off, but still was a good profit deal for us. And in the end, I don't know if I could say everyone was happy. Seller was super happy. Tenant might have been pissed with us, and the buyer was frustrated, but he was happy, you know, after we closed it. So it just feels good to get
it right.
What's that?
The lender got his money, collected all his interest for having that money parked.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So lesson, I guess, for anyone who has some capital, the lender, it seems to be the best position in a real estate deal because you can just do whatever you want.
And you just make it.
And basically, basically, you know, you're getting your interest one way or another. So I think that's a good position to be in if you have some capital to lend. But yeah, so that's kind of the breakdown of this deal. We finally got it closed. Seller was happy, and yeah. And this was our second deal that we closed from Call Geeks, which is exciting for me because that's turning out to be a pretty good ROI for us so far. So I'm happy about that. But yeah, that's it for that breakdown. So I guess I'll go from KPIs into victories. So that was a victory, obviously, to close that deal. And then we got another 5-star review this week, not from that seller, but from a previous closing. So that was a victory, and hopefully this guy will leave us a good one too. Excuse me.
Great.
So that was a victory. Get another 5-star, and then oh yeah. So I'll touch briefly on the Matt Larson thing because that was a victory for me too. So another thing I've touched on, I think a few weeks in a row now, is that I've been having challenges on the dispo side of things with people trying to go around me on deals, contacting my sellers, and just trying to steal deals from me. So 2 victories this week actually. So first, a knock on wood, but one of my sellers that I lost actually came back to me on their own account this week, and they were like, "We're ready to move forward." And I didn't even threaten to sue these people yet, but they just came back around, and I'm really happy about that. So hopefully we can close that out. You know, knock on wood. Hopefully there's no more issues with that one. But they did come back to me. They filled out all their seller documents and everything. So hopefully we can close that. Scheduled to close in April. But I'm excited about that one. That was a nice victory. And then another thing I wanted to touch on was the Matt thing. So I'll share this for anyone who's listening because basically I had been sending out after I listened to his call, I think a few months ago. I adopted his process, but I didn't adopt the full process. So I'm grateful for his call this week because I had missed a few things. So essentially, I was sending out deals. I was still sending out photos with a link to my photo album, which had a link or photos of everything in the house and stuff. And I also was sending out the address just without the number, basically. And so after I heard his call this week, he mentioned to not do either one of those things, and his team doesn't do that. So I think he mentioned that they send it out just with one picture of the front of the house, and they don't send out the address. They just send out like a neighborhood, or they'll even sometimes just send out a city, I think he said.
I
So
think you said
I
maybe
tried that
even
this
they
week.
don't send pictures all the time at all.
Okay, yeah. So basically, I changed up my approach this week. I was like a bit nervous to not send out any pictures because I was like, no one's gonna care. So it might be just a limiting belief, but I sent it out this week for a new deal that we got, and I sent it out with 3 photos just of the exterior of the home. I whited out the address or the numbers on the house, so you can't see it, and then I just included the city. I didn't include the street name or anything, and I still included my comps and stuff, but I don't think you can necessarily give it away on that because that's all kind of different street addresses. So basically, people would know the neighborhood, but they don't know the street address, and they don't have pictures, like too many pictures of the house. So that's what I did, and I was like, hey, anyone who's interested, just reach out to me. I'll send you all of our pictures, address, etc. And I think that was the way to go because I had 5 people reach out to me. I asked all those 5 people for proof of funds. 2 of them ignored me at that point. So I was like, okay, you're probably wholesalers. Didn't send them any more information. And then 3 of them, I did. They were all interested. They all gave me offers, and I sold the deal. So
Nice. That's
and
great.
knock on wood on this one as well. But so far so good. I haven't had any issues from the seller, like reaching out, like, hey, I saw your property for sale, like all this stuff. I haven't had any of those issues. And typically in the past, those issues would happen almost immediately. So I think I'm in the clear in terms of like people snaking me from my email blast. Like we've mentioned in the past, people are going to be marketing constantly, so she's going to get other calls. But as long as it's not like directly from my marketing, that's what I'm trying to avoid. So so far so good on that new process. So just wanted to share that in case anyone else is running into the same issues. And yeah, another thing that I also took notes on that I didn't do on this one because actually people just bought based on the photos. They didn't even ask to go see it. But another thing that Matt shared that I thought was a great idea was actually setting appointments for showings when the property is vacant or when it's occupied, which is something I wasn't doing in the past. So in the past, like I would just, when someone's interested, they send me the proof of funds, whatever. They would just be like, "What's the lockbox code?" I would just send them the lockbox code, and that's it. And then I'm like
Yeah.
chasing them, following up. Like, did you see it? How'd you like it? Like, that kind of thing. And Matt shared that they do appointments by the hour. And so that's something that I took notes on and I'm going to implement in the future, which is basically just anyone who's interested, instead of just giving them a lockbox code and, just try to follow up with them, he actually asks them, when are you free? He sets an appointment in the calendar and then he'll follow up with them an hour after their scheduled appointment so that, you know exactly when they went to the property, when they should be getting back to you and all that. So I'm going to try that in the future
Yeah, that's a great
and
point.
see how that goes.
It locks people
Share that
down, makes
also.
them more serious and more committed.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, that was a great call for me. I guess I'm sharing that in victories because there's a victory to not have my seller, calling me like trying to back out immediately. So that was a huge victory for me. And then also just some of his tips that I shared.
Well,
So
and
that was
weeding out
awesome.
those 2 buyers who wouldn't give proof of funds, right? Because those could be some of the people who are gonna
Exactly.
snake you.
Yeah, yeah. And so I think it's going to help me kind of whittle down my list gradually. If I get 5 or 10 people interested on every deal and, a couple of those people don't send me proof of funds, then I pretty much assume they're a wholesaler because it's not hard to send proof of funds. Either you send a bank statement or you can send just like a credit line or whatever. But if they can't even do that, then they're probably not a real buyer.
And
So
those people
I
just
think that's a
ignored
good.
you, didn't even respond?
Yeah, they didn't even respond.
Yeah,
So I thought that
because,
interesting.
like,
But in this case, I feel like I'm protected because I didn't share photos and address and stuff.
if they were real buyers and they didn't like sharing their money, they would respond and they'd say, "Well, I don't really wanna share, that feels private," right? But then you could maybe make them
Yeah,
away, but if they just don't respond, then they're probably not real.
yeah, definitely. Yep. So yeah, that was victories there, and then um oh, another victory. This deal that I've been working on for a few months also supposed to close in January, but it didn't. But for multiple reasons. So title search, there are multiple liens and stuff, and then they found an old deed of trust. And kudos to Ashley, because she actually came up with a different solution that I've never heard of before. Because I first asked you about this last year. I started running into like these old deed of trusts that like weren't released, even though they were paid off. And so I asked you about it last year, and you and Jason helped me like figure out how to get around those. And basically, you just have to find the company somehow and get them to release it. But sometimes that can take a long time because the banks are super slow.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say kudos to Ashley. I want to share this with you and anyone who's listening that runs into this. So basically, she came up with this exception that she put on the title policy, that she said that we could basically, you just list it as an exception. So I could send you the PDF if you want, but they listed it as an exception on the title policy. So it's basically like title insurance with an exception, essentially, so that the buyer could still close. And basically, all they did was just list it like, there is this lien. It's from 2001. It's most likely paid off, but it doesn't expire until 2026. Like that's when it automatically expires. But just want to make you aware, like this is on there. But that way we could still close. Unfortunately, in this case, the buyer wasn't comfortable with that, but that was a cool like workaround, because I think some buyers would just be like, okay, I don't care, that's fine. This buyer wasn't okay with it, so I had to get the lien released. But that was just a cool tidbit that I didn't know we could do. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
something I
cool.
might
We
try
have
going
we have
forward.
two deals right now that are in limbo because the person who had the liens is deceased, and the heirs are not willing to sign a release on it, even though they've been paid. So it's been a very frustrating thing for us. So I wonder if that's possible to do.
Oh god. Yeah, it's always rough. But yeah, with this one, long story short, I had to reach out to, it was with Citibank, and I guess they sold to some bigger company, but I had to reach out to Citibank like from so many different numbers and emails and stuff.
Yeah,
And they finally got it released this week on Thursday. And so we pretty much submitted everything for closing Friday. I'm not counting it yet because we're not recorded yet, but they did submit for recording the lien release, and we're pretty much good to close tomorrow. So I'm excited about that too, because that one we've been working on for a few months, trying to get it resolved. Um, so yeah, I guess that's it for victories this week. Um, yeah, because we're trying to keep it brief, anyways. I guess my only challenge that I wanted feedback on was I'd like to kind of restructure my team's bonus. So I was just wondering how you structure yours. And basically, right now, I'm giving them bonus on closed deals, but basically only for deals that they are directly contributing to. And I'd like to kind of have more of a team vibe. And so I'm thinking to just give everyone a bonus for closing and make it half of what I'm giving them if it's their direct deal, if that
yeah,
makes sense. So that's what I'm thinking. I was just curious what you do. Because right now, like I said, like I have one acquisitions, well, technically one and a half. My other girl is in training; she's going to be official soon. But basically, anyone who like revives a lead and then we get a contract and close it, they'll get a bonus. But if you don't like revive the lead directly, then I haven't been giving bonuses. But I want to kind of have more of a community vibe when we close a deal. So
yeah,
that's my idea. Just wanted to ask you.
yeah. Well, that's how I set mine up from the beginning, because my goal was to have the team pulling together towards the same goal. Because I had read some
Yeah.
stuff about, like, if you incentivize one department for this and one department for that, then there becomes a competition within your team that can be unhealthy at times, or a feeling of being left out or hurt or whatever. So
Mhm.
yeah, we just incentivize closed deals. So every time we close a deal, everybody gets a bonus, and that way. The other thing, I think I heard it on a podcast too, maybe a Steve Trang or something, just about, like, if it's an acquisitions task or transaction coordination task or a dispo task, and you ask somebody from a different department to do it, and they know they're not going to get incentive, they're not going to get a bonus if it closes because it's not their thing, then might be like, oh, that's not my job, I'm not going to do that. But if everybody knows
Yeah.
that you're working together toward closed deals, and then you get a bonus when you close a deal, then nobody cares what the task is. They just want to get it done to move toward the goal, which is closing deals. So
Yeah.
that's what we do, is we just have one. And so we've graduated it. I mean, in the beginning, everybody got the same amount of closed deals, and now we've done it according to seniority. So it's like, you are not eligible for closed deal bonuses until you've been with the company for 6 months. And then from 6 months to a year, you're eligible for one tier of closed deals. And then after a year, you're at the tier that's the highest for us right now in terms of closed bonus. But we're also talking about evolving that because our deals, since we started doing more houses, our closing amounts are so radically different. We could close a $30,000 deal or an $8,000 deal on a piece of land, right? So we're
Yeah.
talking about doing some sort of a percentage of the profit on the closed deals to even incentivize people to work more toward the higher profit deals. Because one thing we
Hmm.
found was that like we have people working just as hard toward a deal. Like we had a dud. There was a JV that we ended up making like $1,500 on last quarter, right? And so it's like people are working just as hard.
Yeah.
That one is there on the $30,000 one because to them it means the same thing in terms of bonus, right? So I'm looking at now going, okay, well, if we close a
Hmm.
$30,000 deal, you get like 0.05% of the profit. And if we close a $1,500 deal, you get 0.05% of the profit, So
Yeah.
people are working on the deals that we want to close more. I don't know. We're still
Right.
kicking that around, but that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so let me know if I can answer any more questions about how we do it, but that's basically how we do it. And then we're all working together.
Yeah.
We're all if you have a boat, we're all pulling together, towards the same goal, the same rate.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that's it for me then. I appreciate it. We can switch on over.
All right. Well, thanks for checking in. There's good stuff in there. It's good to hear your victories. All right. So I'm going to jump in and do my side, talk about my business a little bit and what's gone on this past week. Let's see here. I just made notes on it, so I'll just jump into that. We had another slow week. We've been having some slow weeks with closings and sold, so it's been frustrating for me. We're working on that. If you've listened to past episodes, we're doubling down on our marketing. We've hired a cold caller, and we're upping our SMS and doing some stuff so that by the end of the second quarter we should have more traction and be doing more volume than we did the first quarter. Knock on wood, fingers crossed. But we had 46
Yeah.
leads this week from SMS. I don't know how many we got from cold callers. We've been averaging about 15 to 20 for cold callers. So if we say 15, we're around 60 leads this week. I just didn't look that up, and I don't still know where to look it up on my Podio. We made 26 offers this week, which which is good. We normally converted 15 or 20% of offers. So we got one contract this week, so we didn't convert at 15 or 20%, but we did get one contract on a piece of land. And then we had 0 solds and 0 closed, which is a challenge right now. We have one in escrow, so that should close soon. We're ironing out a title issue that looks like it will be ironed out. We're just waiting on an abstractor to give us the final green light to close that. And then we
Nice.
have, pardon me. Today we're closing on we're getting documents signed on a subject to purchase. Actually, Duncan is meeting with the sellers today at the property and getting closing documents signed.
Nice.
So it's not a closing that brings revenue in, but it's a closing that will give us control of an asset that we feel like we have a strong profit potential with. We still have some tenants to navigate there, but I'm excited about that because it's the first sub two, in a while that we've been working on. I've got another one in the works too, but I'll report more on that as it evolves. So
Nice.
challenges. Yeah, I'll do challenges first. Challenges, the cold streak that I just mentioned in Dispo. We've had, when I look at this, we've had some bad deals, and we need more of a volume of deals, a combination of things, right? So we've had some issues with land, with ditches or flood zones, or just various features of land on our land deals that have caused us to not be able to close on deals. We've had some title issues. I just mentioned one when you were checking in about this whole subdivision. We've got 2 contracts in that subdivision, and we found buyers for them for vacant lots. And then we had a third person who wants to sell to us, but we've been holding that off because some guy who developed subdivision did a bunch of lots on owner financing, and then they were paid off, and he'd never released the liens, and he died. And his family has bad blood with him or something, and don't want to have anything to do with anything that has to do with him, so they won't sign the lien releases, and it's just been a big mess. So anyway,
Yeah.
sidebar. And then we had an interesting one this week that's kind of a teaching thing for, you probably haven't run into this one yet, Jasper, maybe you have, but we had a one we got under contract. We found a buyer for it. Maybe we didn't. Anyway, we're doing the title work on it, and it's got a habitat. Have you run into anything with a Habitat for Humanity rider in the deed?
No.
All right, so this is a new one, and this is for anybody who's listening who might run into this. In the deed, there's a clause that Habitat has first right of refusal. So basically, if we make an offer on the property, that seller is bound by the deed to submit the offer to Habitat for them to review, and they can match or beat that offer, and
Oh gosh.
they can choose to take the property back. so
Yeah.
so we're dealing with this one, and I was procrastinating calling Habitat because it just didn't sound like a fun phone call to make, but I did make the call, and they were really nice at Habitat. But basically the way they operate is when they do a house for somebody and they sell the house, they put in the deed that they have first right of refusal if the house ever turns over. And so basically the first woman I talked to said, yeah, we generally just buy everything back and then we rehab it and sell it to another low income person. And if we choose
Yeah.
not to buy it back, first of all, the offer has to be submitted to us. So the seller didn't know this, and they basically accepted our offer and signed a contract with us, and then we didn't know. So now we know that if we run into a Habitat deed, or if we're able to look at the deed and it has a Habitat rider, we have to advise the seller, we have to send our offer to Habitat before you can accept our offer. But then what Habitat told me when I talked to the second person who's like in charge of the acquisitions or whatever, they said, yeah, we do generally buy them back and fix them up. But also for any buyers that we would approve, if we didn't buy it back, that buyer would have to have an income of 20 to 80% of the median income in the area. So you have to basically be a low income person for them to pass on the property and allow you to buy it, which would disqualify pretty much any investor. So basically,
Yeah.
if you have a Habitat right of refusal in a deed, and generally can pull up the deed on Register of Deeds and look at it, which we do when we're making an offer and we're about to go under contract, we pull up the deed just to see if there's anything in there that's funky. If it says Habitat in there, you probably have a dead deal, is what we've learned.
Yeah.
So just wanted to share that with everybody. Another challenge I have is that the sub 2 I did about 3 years ago, the buyer, I owner financed it out to a buyer and he wants to close on it. And the attorney who did the original subject to paperwork has retired, / been disbarred. So this person
Oh god.
has not been super motivated to help me with getting the documents I need to get to the closing attorney for the buyer to close this thing out. So that's been frustrating for me. I did reach out to another of our attorneys who we close deals with, Taylor Law, shout out, who are awesome. And he's now looking at it to see if he can help facilitate the process. But I still need to get documents from this former lawyer. And I went through my email, and her PA, or her paralegal, I made multiple requests to get a copy of the closing documents and never received it. So I don't have it anywhere. I actually have to get it from this person who's retired, and that's frustrating, because she's doing other things and doesn't really care that much.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's been a challenge for me. And then we ran into a deal where we have a motivated out-of-state seller, but they seem to be asking a little bit of a high price, and it's just challenging because it's an area where it's really hard to comp. So I've done a cost per square foot thing, but I guess, it's just an overall challenge that we run into sometimes as investors of really trying to gauge a market in a new area and know how fast that thing's going to move and how high we can go on the price and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
like I said, and it's a bigger property than most of the houses in the area. It's like a large, 4,000 square foot, 5-bedroom, 3-bath or something in a neighborhood where most things are 3+2s. And so, yeah, I don't know how much I need to elaborate on that, but it's a tricky one. So just a challenge that we run into, we have to deal with. The victories, some of the victories come out of challenges. So, victory was, I got tired of dealing with this subject to thing, and I asked this other attorney for support. So it was good for me to ask for support rather than keep trying to mess around. So that's a victory that he's willing to pitch in and help. We're doing personality assessments on our team, and we're using Kolbe, Kolbe. And so we got all those assessments done individually. And then I have, through Strategic Coach, a program advisor who's trained in Kolbe to interpret that. And she did this really cool thing for us. She did a team analysis based on our individual reports and just sort of did a an overall, like, it's cool. It's like multiple page thing that shows where our team is strong, where our team is weak, where we could shore up things with the personality qualities that we have, and show where we overlap, show where we could use more of certain qualities, and then how to work together and what our challenges might be in working together, etc. So she's going to go over that with us on a Zoom call. We're going to schedule an appointment for that. So that's cool. I've been enjoying getting
Nice.
into that just in terms of teamwork and putting everybody in their sweet spot on the team so that their efforts are maximized and their happiness and satisfaction is also maximized.
Yeah.
So then, Jasper, you and I have chatted offline about SMS, and this is an ongoing topic if you've watched our pod before, just where SMS is after all the upheaval last year. But we went back and tried, we kept our Smarter Contact SMS account open after we had all the challenges with launch control, just so we had a backup. And so we've been using that for a couple of campaigns, and our response rate is way higher than launch control for initial messages. We've been at like 6 to 7% in launch control, and we're at somewhere around 12% after two campaigns, about 6,000 SMS in Smarter Contact. So that's been nice. That's kind of a victory this week. And then we, learned that that's Matt Larson's go-to for SMS is Smarter Contact. So I just figured I'd give it another shot. It was very buggy the last time we were using it, but they seem to have worked out a lot of the bugs. My SMS guy says it's been pretty smooth sailing. Pardon me. He had a little bit of a hiccup with pushing the lead to CRM where there's a delay on one day, but otherwise it's been good. So yeah, that's a victory. I'm running low on time. We're trying to keep this tight to an hour today. So we got an extension on a deal with a tenant that we've had challenges with. We were supposed to close this next week. We weren't ready to close it. We hadn't had an inspection, and we hadn't gotten the sellers to commit to doing an eviction. We had told them we'd facilitate it for them, and we'd even gotten them the documentation. But this week they signed a notice to vacate for us. We got that sent out via certified mail to the tenants, and we got a 60-day extension from the sellers. So that was victory. I've got my website redesign underway. I hired somebody on Upwork to redesign our website and just make it look more clean and more white space, and get our team profile in there, so it's more of a trust building vehicle, which I've talked about on previous episodes. But hopefully, it's going to next week or so. So I'm excited to see how that turns out. And then, I mentioned we've taken steps to increase our number of deals and increase our marketing. So we've got our Rapid Assistance, Matt Larson's company, cold callers starting this week. They project Tuesday as we start. So then I'll have two cold callers, one from Call Geeks and one from Rapid Assistance working for us. So that'll double our cold calling leads, hopefully, and maybe increase the quantity of our cold calling leads. And then we've continued to up our SMS volume with our one SMS person. So as I mentioned, we had quite a few, I think it was like 46 SMS leads this week, which is great for one guy. And what else? Oh, we set up a virtual PO box, and we compared two of them. I think I'm using the same one as you, Jasper. iPostal. Is that what you're using?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
If anybody's looking for a virtual PO box, we did compare a few different services and features. I think Jasper had recommended iPostal to me previously. I had one of the people on my team run a comparison of features and cost and everything, and we settled on that. So that's exciting that we have a virtual PO box, which to me means I don't have to drive to the PO box and use my key and open it up and pull out all the mail and scan stuff and send it to the team and all that stuff, or even checks deposit, like all that stuff. This is going to be handled, and that certified notice to vacate got sent through iPostal. We didn't have to have somebody go to a post office and get a certified letter and all that shit. So
nice.
So that's a victory. And then stories and tips. I mentioned the habitat thing just so people are aware of that. One thing that came up this week is, we had to try and find this tenant and this sub two that we're taking over because they've been very slippery, and the people who we're buying it from don't even necessarily have a full name, and they've used a couple different phone numbers.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, so they're slippery. But I just wanted to mention I use True People Search if you're trying to track people down, like reverse phone number lookup and that kind of thing. It's free. I don't, we're not endorsing them or getting any kickback, but That's the best free one I've found is True People Search. If you have a phone number and
Yeah.
you're trying to find a name or an address, or if you have one bit of information but you're trying to find the other thing, that's a good one as far as a tool. And then, the Ryan Street subject 2. I guess I can break that down after we close it. This is the Durham subject 2 that I've had for 3 years. There is a podcast
Yeah.
that I did with William Tingle on his sub 2 deals show, breaking that deal down. But I can kind of break down the profit on it. I'll give you a thumbnail right now. It's like we got it for a price as a fixer. We put it up on the MLS as is. Actually, I don't even know I didn't put it on the MLS. I just put it on like Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace. But we sold it, and we sold it owner financing. We made $17K on the down payment because we got them to bring in enough to cover the arrears and give us $17K in our pocket. I guess this is a deal I did before I had a company, so I did this. But then $17K upfront, $200K cash flow per month, which is not impressive, but they've had it for 3 years plus, maybe 4 years. So I've made $10K on the monthly. So that's 27. And then we're going to close this out prematurely, and I'm going to make another 10 on this back when they close it out. The difference between the underlying mortgage and the mortgage that I put on with the buyer. So 17 plus 12, I think, on the monthly plus 10. So 17, 29, 39K I made on this in 3 or 4 years. And if they had kept it for the full 30-year term, I would have made closer to 50 or 60K. So that's the beauty of sub.
Yeah.
And I can break that down further if people are interested after we actually close it. But and then I can break down this other one that's signing today. I can break down the projections on it next week. Once I don't want to do that before we lock it up and give a lot of details. But
Yeah.
So that's it. That's all I've got, and we're right at about an hour. So we did it. Did you have any feedback or anything on any of the stuff? I wasn't really asking for feedback, but if you had any hits or any thoughts, I'm always open.
Yeah, I didn't know you could send letters on iPostal, so that's cool. I have to look into that.
Giselle sent one of my team sent the certified notice to vacate to the tenants on through iPostal, so it's there for a few bucks fee, I think. Yeah,
I have to check that out. I've been using this company called LetterStream. I don't know if you heard of them, but it's like you just go on there, you upload whatever your letter is, and then you can send it in a flat envelope. You can send it just regular certified, fold it up, or you can send it in like a something else. They have a few different options, but that's one I've been using. But I'll have to check out iPostal. That'd be even easier, probably.
Yeah, and we have one called. Speaking of free tools, we have one called Postal Methods, which is you can send a letter there, and they just charge you for postage in a little bit. It's like $1 if you want to send a letter. But they didn't have the certified letter. But if you want to send a regular one, it's called Postal Methods. We use that when we send out neighbor letters. We send when we get a piece of vacant land, we send letters to all the neighbors to see if they might be interested, and we use Postal Methods for that.
Yeah. Nice.
And then yours is called. I'm typing these in the show notes. LetterStream, and then we mentioned
LetterStream.
True People Search. I'm just writing down all the tools that we mentioned. True People Search, so I can pop it into the show notes when we post this episode.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's wrap it then. I wrote down one quote from Dan Sullivan that I'd written down. The simpler things become, the more results multiply. And Dan Sullivan is that guy, Who Not How guy, who said that. Probably not an original.
Yeah, I like that.
Simplify and multiply. Keep it simple. Pick one track or two that you're good at and stick with them. That's also something that Hormozy will often say is pick one thing. A lot of investors will say that. Don't get caught on shiny objects, and simplify it, streamline it, and then it multiplies.
Yeah. That's a good one.
And that's what I got. So shall we call it a day?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks everybody for listening. If you have any feedback or questions or anything, we're always available. You can leave a comment in the YouTube video or reach out to me or Jasper on Facebook, Jasper Cool or Mark Cool, or I think we have an I've Got a Hammer Facebook business page as well. And we have a website, I'veGotAhammer.com. My business is I've Got a Hammer. And yeah, that's it. Thanks a lot for joining us, and have a great week.